It is nothing short of a complete paradigm shift for how we understand human performance in high-stakes environments.
Hello, this is Mark Rodriguez, producer and host of Heavy or Not, the OG Swim Guide. In this episode, we begin a two-part exploration of a provocative new book called Shitty Best, The Logic of Unconditional Self-Acceptance and Radical Compassion. The author is Dr. Pavel Somov, a licensed psychologist, author, and speaker. Pavel is also my friend. He's a neighbor in the historic South Side of Pittsburgh. And he's a water polo player, power lifter, and dad. Hey, the title might catch you off guard, Shitty Best, but the idea behind it deserves some serious consideration, especially from coaches. What happens when an athlete makes a terrible decision at the worst possible time? Coaches often respond with frustration, blame, or anger, and Pavel asks us to examine the mistake differently. Was that athlete doing the best that was actually available to them in that precise moment, even when the results were undeniably bad? The first episode examines perfection, human performance, mistakes, shame, and what Pavel calls our moment-specific shitty best. So let's get started.
Imagine you're standing on the sidelines, right? Or you're sitting in the locker room, and you are just watching this athlete that you've trained for months.
Right.
Like you've poured your soul into this kid, and you watch them completely blow a high-stakes play. Like I'm talking a game-losing interception in the final seconds of a championship match.
Oh, man. Yeah.
And your immediate reaction, obviously, is just this sickening surge of frustration. You're asking, why did they do that? They know better. You want to throw your clipboard. You feel that that moralized rage.
Absolutely. It's totally visceral.
It is. But imagine if instead of screaming at them, you pause. You look at the play, you look at the athlete, and you just realize that they executed a completely, unequivocally perfect play.
I mean, that just sounds completely insane, doesn't it?
It sounds ridiculous.
Yeah, it sounds like a guaranteed recipe for a losing season, honestly. Like the immediate reaction of anyone who has ever coached or played or, even just passionately watched a sport is that calling a failure perfect is just the absolute fast track to mediocrity.
It completely breaks our ingrained sports paradigm, like it shatters it. Today, we're going to explore why accepting an athlete's shitty best.
I love that term.
Right. It's the actual brilliant terminology we're going to unpack today. But we're going to see why this concept might actually be the ultimate, completely unfair competitive advantage for you as a coach.
Yeah, it really is a total game changer.
The book is called Shitty Best. Fundamentally dismantles how we view human performance and mistakes and team management. The book is called Shitty Best, The Logic of Unconditional Self-Acceptance and Radical Compassion, and it's by clinical psychologist Dr. Pavel Somov.
It's just a remarkable, jarring piece of work. I mean, Dr. Somov has this incredibly unique background. So he grew up in the Soviet Union and eventually immigrated to the United States. And his clinical work sits right at this bleeding edge of mindfulness and neuroplasticity and existential psychology.
It's a wild combination.
Yeah, it is. And a few years ago, he actually wrote a book called Present Perfect, which dealt with a lot of these similar themes. But he found that the academic language was just a bit too stiff.
It didn't translate.
It didn't quite capture the messy, visceral reality of how human beings actually operate under extreme pressure.
Yeah. So he rebranded the core philosophy to Shitty Best, which again, masterpiece of a title.
Oh, it's brilliant.
We're going to take this concept, which initially sounds like something you'd, unpack on a velvet couch in a therapist's office.
Well, yeah.
And we are going to drag it right out onto the turf, onto the hardwood, into the film room. We're going to figure out how to build psychologically bulletproof athletes.
I love that. Bulletproof athletes.
But to do that, to even begin to understand how to help an athlete improve using this, we have to start by fundamentally breaking down how they define this incredibly toxic, terrifying word, which is perfection.
And that is a massive undertaking, especially in athletics, because perfectionism isn't just common in sports. I mean, it's practically the prevailing religion. We glorify the perfect game, right? The perfect routine, flawless execution. We demand it from our players, and we demand it from ourselves. But Solomov argues that our very definition of the word perfection is just an exhausting, illogical, self-contradictory mess.
It's a moving target.
And if you don't define the target correctly, you are going to destroy your athletes trying to hit it.
He does this amazing thought experiment early in the book that I want to try right now.
The crossword puzzle?
Yes, the crossword puzzle test. So I want you to think about a crossword puzzle. You're sitting at your kitchen table, you're looking at the clue, and the clue is simply the word perfect.
Okay.
What are the synonyms you're plugging into those little white boxes? So Somov points out that people universally throw these synonyms into two very distinct buckets. In the first bucket, you have words that mean error-free. So you're thinking of words like, flawless, faultless, immaculate.
Impeccable.
Impeccable, exactly.
Yeah.
Which is the traditional sports definition, right?
Yeah, a gymnastics routine with no deductions. A pitcher who doesn't allow a single runner on base.
Right. But then you have the second bucket of synonyms, and these are words that point to an endpoint. Words like ultimate or peak, highest, topmost, final.
And this is where Somov's logic just cuts like a knife. When you look at both of those buckets side by side, the error-free bucket and the endpoint bucket, he points out this hidden, inescapable commonality. All of these words hide the fundamental idea of finality. If something is truly at its peak, there is quite literally nowhere higher to go. The climb is over.
Right.
If a system is absolutely flawless, it cannot be improved upon. Therefore, perfection simply means a state that cannot be any better. It has reached its absolute finality. It is the ceiling of reality.
Wow. Okay, so if something can be improved, we actually don't call it perfect. We say, oh, that was a great play, but it's a work in progress. Or it was almost perfect.
Exactly.
But if a state truly, literally cannot be improved upon in that exact moment, then by definition, it has met the criteria. It is perfect.
Right.
Now, I know this sounds like a lot of semantics.
Right.
So to make this super concrete, Somov uses what I call the shirt color reality check.
Oh, I love this one.
It's so good.
Yeah.
He asks his audience, what color is your shirt? So let's say you, the listener, are wearing a blue poaching polo right now. So Somov then asks a very specific, carefully worded question. He says, can this shirt right now not be blue?
And it's so funny because the human brain, which loves to problem solve, immediately tries to find a loophole,
Wrong
right?
place.
People will say, well, yeah, I could dye it black. I could pour bleach all over it. I could walk into a dark closet and turn off all the lights in the room so it looks black.
Yes. Everyone tries to outsmart the question. But Somov catches them and says, wait, pay attention to the phrasing. Every single one of those actions, dyeing it, bleaching it, walking to a light switch, takes time.
It takes time.
Even if it's a fraction of a split second to flip a switch, duration is required. It moves you out of the current moment and into the next sequential moment. The question wasn't whether the shirt could be a different color later. The question is whether it could be a different color right now, in this exact freeze-framed microsecond of reality.
And physics dictates that the answer is no. Right now, the blue shirt is blue. It is what it is. You're dealing with a closed system in a frozen moment of time. You cannot simultaneously be in one state and a different state in the very same microsecond.
Right.
And Somov isn't just teaching abstract philosophy here, he's warming up the engine of this ruthless logic so he can apply it to human behavior.
Because once you accept that the shirt cannot be anything other than what it is in this exact millisecond, you have to turn around and apply that exact same logic to the sweating, panting athlete standing right in front of you.
This brings us to the ultimate question for the athlete. You're the coach. You're standing on the sideline looking at your point guard who just blindly threw the ball into the third row of the bleachers. You are furious.
Oh, beyond furious.
But applying Somov's logic, you have to ask, can you right now not be the you that you right now already are?
It's a total mind bender.
It is. And I'm going to play devil's advocate here because if I'm that point guard, I'm immediately getting defensive. I'm saying, well, yeah, coach, of course I can be better. I can take a deep breath. I can calm my heart rate down. I can focus my eyes on the receiver's chest instead of their feet.
And you're doing exactly what the audience did with the blue shirt. You're trying to bleach it. So Somov will look at that point guard and say, taking a breath takes time. Changing your visual focal point takes time. Neural conduction, the literal electrical signal traveling from your brain down your spinal cord to your hands, has a biological speed limit.
Muscles do not contract or relax outside of time. Every single one of those self-improvement strategies you just listed comes with a duration. They require a transition from the here and now to the there and then, but we aren't talking about 1 second from now. We are talking about right now.
In that frozen microsecond.
Yes. In the exact, indivisible microsecond the ball left their fingertips, that athlete was exactly who they were. Given the configuration of the universe in that millisecond, they could not be anyone else.
Yeah, so you cannot simultaneously be the person you are and a calmer, more focused, better executing version of that person in the exact same millisecond.
You're hitting on the exact paradox Sohiromov is exposing. What's fascinating here is that if we follow this logic to its absolute conclusion, it means that in any given freeze-framed moment, an athlete cannot be any better than they are right then.
Right.
And if they cannot be any better than they are in this exact moment, they have, by definition, met our crossword puzzle standard of perfection, a state that cannot be any better.
Meaning, the athlete who just threw the season-ending interception is, in that exact microsecond, perfect.
Precisely.
Listen, I can practically hear coaches slamming their steering wheels right now because it sounds offensive. It sounds like you're telling me to give out participation trophies for blowing a championship game.
Oh, for sure.
If the athlete is currently perfect, if they literally couldn't possibly be any better, then why on earth did they just fumble the ball? Why did they miss the wide-open free throw? This is where Somov's work has to make the jump from, like, lofty philosophy to the gritty, boots-on-the-ground reality of competitive sports.
And that transition is exactly why Somov abandoned the pristine language of his first book and introduced the concept of the shitty best.
The shitty best.
Yes. He realized that people fundamentally bristle at the word perfect. It carries way too much baggage. When a coach hears perfect, it sounds like praise. It sounds like an endorsement of the mistake.
Right, like you're saying, good job throwing that pick six.
Somov clarifies, we are not talking about the athlete's lifetime best. We are certainly not talking about the imagined best that you, the coach, project onto them when you think about their raw potential. We are talking strictly, scientifically, about their moment-specific best.
Sometimes an athlete's moment-specific best is spectacular. It's the highlight reel. It's hitting the walk-off home run. But sometimes, due to the circumstances of that exact millisecond, their moment-specific best is a shitty best. It's throwing the ball into the stands. It's tripping over their own feet.
And to understand why their best was so shitty in that particular moment, we have to look under the hood at what actually produces a human action. Somov explains that an athlete's physical output is not just a matter of willpower. It is the final, inescapable result of a staggering number of variables crashing together all at once. He divides these variables into three massive categories: the knowns, the unknowns, and the unknowables.
Let's break those down, because this is where the coaching application gets really real. So the knowns are the obvious things, right? It's their physical strength training. It's their rote knowledge of the playbook. It's the fact that you ran this exact transition drill 100 times in practice on Tuesday. These are the variables the coach can easily see, which is why the coach screams, "You know this."
But the knowns are just the tiny, visible tip of the iceberg. Beneath the surface, driving the actual performance, are the unknowns. And these are powerful variables operating in the background that you, as the coach, might not see. Frankly, the athlete might not even be fully aware of them in the heat of the moment.
Like what?
Like the sleep debt they're carrying because they were up until 3 a.m. studying for a biology midterm. Or their blood sugar subtly crashing because the pregame meal was poorly timed. Or, critically, it is their nervous system being absolutely fried because of the tone of voice you, the coach, used with them during a timeout 5 seconds ago.
Oh, man. That one stings. If I pull a player aside and aggressively yell at them to wake up, I am literally injecting a brand new, highly volatile variable into their nervous system.
Yes, you are.
I am spiking their cortisol, I am altering their capacity to perform in the next moment, and then I'm getting mad at them for the outcome.
Precisely. You're actively changing the physiological configuration of the moment. And then Somov pushes us to consider the unknowables. These are variables fundamentally outside the reach of human awareness or measurement.
So things we couldn't even test for if we wanted to.
Right. It could be trace elements in the city water supply they drank that morning, subtly affecting their hydration at a cellular level. It could be a microscopic biomechanical twitch in their knee cartilage that imperceptibly altered their throwing angle by 1 degree. Somov even jokingly mentions the phase of the moon, or solar flares.
Solar flares.
Yeah. The grand point he is making is that reality is unimaginably messy. An athlete is a hypercomplex biological system, and their output on the field is the inescapable causal result of all these billions of variables colliding in 1 millisecond.
Okay, I have to push back here. Hard. Because I'm thinking about the greats, I'm thinking about Michael Jordan, I'm thinking about Kobe Bryant and the Mamba mentality, right?
Sure.
These guys were legendary for their absolute ruthless refusal to accept mediocrity from themselves or their teammates. So if I'm a coach and I pull my player aside after a blown coverage and say, "Hey man, you gave up that touchdown, but you know what? That was just your moment-specific shitty best. You literally couldn't have done better given the sleep debt and the solar flares."
Right.
Aren't they just going to stop trying?
Yeah.
Doesn't this entire logic just give athletes a massive philosophically sanctioned excuse to be lazy?
It's the most natural objection in the world, and it's the first place every highly competitive mind goes. But Somov argues that this isn't an excuse, it is the ultimate form of radical realism. It's actually much harder to accept than a simple excuse. Somov's core argument here is that reality does not shortchange. Nature does not leave energy on the table. If the athlete could have done better in that exact microscopic configuration of variables, they would have done better.
Oh, wow.
Think about it from an evolutionary and incentive standpoint. What possible incentive did your quarterback have to throw a pick six in front of 50,000 screaming fans?
None. Absolutely none.
Right. Did they want to fail? Did they want the humiliation? Did they want to lose the championship? Of course not.
So they didn't intentionally hold back 10% of their skill just for fun. They didn't leave any unused potential on the table in that microsecond. If they had access to better execution, their brain would have desperately deployed it.
The system, their brain, their central nervous system, their musculature, the context of the defense, expressed every single ounce of capacity it had access to at that exact time. What didn't materialize simply wasn't available in the supply chain of that moment.
The supply chain of that moment. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, and when you tell an athlete this is their shitty best, you are not endorsing the mistake. You're not saying good job. You are making a clinical causal claim. You're saying, given the severe constraints of reality in that millisecond, this was the absolute best physical action that could possibly occur.
Okay, I see.
And realizing this is crucial for a coach because harsh self-judgment, shame, and screaming are terrible teachers. They trigger the body's survival mechanisms. They cause athletes to tense up, to hide their mistakes, and to play defensively. You cannot reach flow state when you are marinating in shame.
This perfectly tees up the mantra Somov gives his clients. And I really want coaches to imagine one of their toughest, grittiest athletes using this. The mantra is, I am perfect. I have always been perfect. I will always be perfect. I am perfect even when I don't feel perfect.
Yes.
Now, the first time I read that, my brain instantly went to those cheesy motivational posters from the 90s with a kitten hanging from a branch saying, hang in there, you know?
Right, totally.
It sounds like pop psychology, emotional cotton candy, designed to make fragile egos feel better.
And Somov completely anticipates that reaction. He is very, very clear in the text. This is not some Whitman-esque ode to self-love. This is not a fluffy belief exercise where you stand in front of a mirror and lie to yourself about how great you are. He calls this mantra an internalization practice. Specifically, he refers to it as a neuroplasticity biceps rep.
A neuroplasticity biceps rep. Let's dig into the actual mechanism of that, because that is where the magic is.
When an athlete repeats this mantra, they aren't chanting it to manufacture fake confidence. They are using it to actively fight against old, deeply entrenched neural wiring. Let's look at the biology of it. When a player makes a mistake, their brain's default pathway, built over years of being yelled at by parents or coaches, fires up a cascade of shame.
Like, I'm stupid, I choke under pressure, I'm a failure.
And that pathway is thickly myelinated. It is a superhighway of negative self-talk. So repeating Somov's mantra is physical rehab for the brain. It utilizes Hebbian learning, the principle that neurons that fire together wire together.
Right, the neuroscience of habit.
Right. You don't curl a heavy dumbbell because the dumbbell feels emotionally inspiring. You curl it because applying repetition under resistance literally breaks down and rebuilds physical tissue.
So repeating this mantra under the intense emotional resistance of a mistake forces a new neural pathway to fire.
Yes. It trains the athlete's brain to accept the hard causal reality of their moment-specific capacity. It cuts the power supply to the panic center, allowing the logical brain to stay online.
Okay, so let's say we get the athlete on board. We accept this premise. The athlete did their absolute moment-specific best. There was no unused potential left on the table, and they are repeating their neuroplasticity reps to stay calm.
Okay.
How on earth do coaches handle film review? Like, the entire point of pulling the team into a dark room on a Monday morning and running the tape is to dissect past errors. If we're operating under the philosophy of, hey, given the variables, it couldn't have been otherwise, how do we fix anything?
This is the critical pivot where we transition from understanding the intense pressure of the present moment to actively analyzing the past. So Somov introduces this concept of finding the ordinary perfection in a mistake.
Ordinary perfection.
Now, in traditional coaching, a mistake is viewed as a moral failure, a lapse in character. But Somov redefines it mechanically. A mistake is simply a discrepancy between what the moment called for and the capacity the athlete brought into that moment.
The demand of the moment exceeded the supply of the athlete. So, for example, the moment called for a perfectly timed, explosive 36-inch vertical jump to block a shot. But the athlete had been playing for 40 minutes straight, their glycogen stores were depleted, their legs were heavy with lactic acid, so they brought a reduced physical capacity into the paint, and the result was a sloppy foul.
The demand exceeded the supply. To help people really grasp this, Somov makes a crucial philosophical distinction between the words should and could. And to illustrate it, he uses a very stark, very dark analogy.
Okay.
Imagine a person who uses a wheelchair. They have severe physical limitations. They have a home health aide who helps them with daily tasks. Suddenly, the home aide clutches their chest and falls to the floor, having a massive heart attack.
It's a heavy analogy, but I see where he's going.
It's heavy, but it clarifies the logic perfectly. Should the person in the wheelchair call 911? Of course. That is the obvious moral imperative of the situation. The moment demands it. But could they? If the only phone in the house is mounted high on a wall in another room and they physically cannot reach it, they simply cannot. They should, but they can't. The capacity does not exist to meet the demand.
So, translating this somewhat extreme analogy back to the stakes of a sports team, let's look at an exhausted defensive back in the fourth quarter of a tie game. The opposing receiver runs a double move. The defensive back bites hard on the pump fake, gets completely turned around, and gives up a 50-yard touchdown.
Right.
Now, when you pause the film on Monday morning, should they have been more patient? Yes. That is what the defensive playbook demands. That is what the technique dictates. But could they have? If that defensive back is operating on extreme physical exhaustion, if their central nervous system is totally fatigued, their cognitive bandwidth is quite literally shredded.
So Horam points out that these factors, fatigue, adrenaline spikes, fear, confusion, are neurological impairments. They're not moral flaws. When lactic acid floods the body and cortisol floods the brain, the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for logical, patient decision-making, literally gets blocked out. Fear is a nervous system state that aggressively narrows your behavioral options to fight, flight, or freeze. So when a coach sits in the film room, points a laser pointer at the screen and yells, "You should have stayed home on defense," they're arguing a moral imperative. They are arguing the should.
Yeah.
But they are completely ignoring the biological, psychological, and physical reality of the could.
Which brings up Somov's time machine thought experiment, which I think is one of the most powerful tools the coach could ever use. I want everyone listening to try this. Imagine rewinding a botched play. You take your athlete and you put them in a hypothetical time machine. You send them back to the exact microsecond before the ball was snapped. But here's the catch. You have to put back everything exactly as it was. You give them the exact same brain chemistry, the exact same stress level, the exact same sleep debt from the night before, the exact same visual blind spots, the exact same emotional weather.
The same solar flares.
Yes. The exact same configuration of the universe down to the atomic level. You hit play. What happens?
They run the exact same botched play. They have to.
It's unavoidable.
It is entirely unavoidable because nothing in the equation has changed to alter the causal outcome. The inputs are identical, so the output must be identical. So Komomov calls this contextual inevitability.
Contextual inevitability.
Yes. When you truly realize that the past, given the exact specific variables in play, couldn't have been otherwise, it acts as a release valve. It completely absolves the athlete of the moral weight of the mistake.
That is so freeing.
And for a coach, adopting this mindset is a massive game changer. It means the film room fundamentally shifts its purpose. It stops being a torture chamber of shame. It stops being an hour of shoulda, coulda, woulda. Instead, it becomes a sterile, highly productive laboratory for understanding.
Yes. You're not looking at the tape to assign blame and make someone feel small. You're looking at the tape to perform an objective autopsy on the moment. You're pausing the screen and asking, okay, we know this was your moment-specific shitty best. What were the exact variables that caused this specific outcome?
Was it a lack of a specific biomechanical skill? Was it physical fatigue? Was it a miscommunication with the linebacker?
Right, because when you remove the threat of moral shame, the athlete drops their defenses. They stop making excuses and can actually look at the screen and say, Coach, honestly, in that moment, I panicked because I couldn't hear the audible over the crowd noise, and I guessed the coverage. That is a tangible variable you can actually work with.
You are transitioning your coaching style from punishing the past, which is impossible to change, to intelligently modifying the future.
That concludes part 1 of our examination of Shitty Best by Dr. Pavel Somov. The first half gives us a different way to examine mistakes. Instead of using the past to assign blame, Coaches can study the variables that produced the performance and prepare the athlete to bring greater capacity into the next moment. In Part 2, we move further into the practical coaching questions. We examine the divided nature of the human brain, the difference between self-esteem and self-acceptance, discipline without dehumanization, and how this approach applies to players, coaches, opponents, and officials. You can purchase Pavel's book, Shitty Best: The Logic of Unconditional Self-Acceptance and Radical Compassion, from Amazon. Search Amazon for Shitty Best Pavel Somov, or follow the book link included with this episode. Pavel is Coach Mark's water polo playing friend and neighbor in the historic South Side of Pittsburgh. We are pleased to help introduce his work to the coaching community in the podcast Heavy or Not, the OG Swim Guide, with episodes number 108 and number 109. Yes, we've got a 2-part mini-series on Shitty Best. Ted Lasso, due to release its next season August 8th, 2026, might want to call Pavel for some deep, heavy content ideas.